wondered if someone else might actually be from an entirely different world? You know, you might be more right than you thought. Welcome to Intro to Humans, insight that will help make sense of it all. So if you're having trouble connecting the dots with some people, like you're wondering why do people do and say the things they do? Why don't we remember situations the same way, even if we were both there and had the same experience? Why do we get so triggered all the time? And how is it that they can't see? Oh, I get your frustration. This has been a passion of mine for a long time, to get inside the human mind, to understand how we experience our world. Let me introduce myself. My name is Karen Kessler, and I'm the director of the Next Level Leaders Center for Excellence, and that is a division of Triad. So let's start by exploring what I call the model of the world. We each have one. It's all very separate to us. And we use our model of the world to take in and make meaning of the world around us. The model of the world is something that starts developing very, very early for us. And every time we have an experience in our world, like there's something that we want when we're very, very young, and we try different things, and once we can actually make it happen, we go, oh, that's how to do that. And we start taking in all of these experiences. We make these little maps that we have about how to get our needs met in the world. Imagine all of these maps, and we sort of wallpaper them on the wall inside our model of the world. And when we're young, we only have a few, and they're probably done with crayon. And when we get older, they get a little bit more complex, and we start working the maps together. And pretty soon, our whole little room that is our model of the world is covered maps on how this world works. And it's how we've learned to understand our world. And because we've done it through experience, through our own eyes, every single one of us has a different model of the world that we've created. Now, how do we explore it? What is the point of this? And at the Next Level Leaders Center for Excellence, we use this model. First of all, we want to understand the structure, understanding the structure that is the model of the world. What are the different elements that make it up? Because when we can start appreciating that, appreciating the fact that we each do have our own model of the world, then we can start recognizing the differences when we're looking at something different than someone else is. And that's why we have two different understandings or two different reactions to something, why our behaviors and choices in a moment are different. We start recognizing what is the model of the world that's actually showing up for us in that moment. Then we can engage not just with our own model of the world, but we can start engaging with other people's model of the world so we can create deeper connection faster. Then we can start working on evolving our own model of the world, deciding that maybe now as an adult, what that means, that behavior, that word, that person, what they mean in our world is different. Once we start engaging with models of the world, we're in a way where we can start to see how other people choose differently to engage with certain things. They place different meaning on things, and we have that opportunity to decide, do we want to take that on? Do we want to evolve our model of the world in a way where we have more choice so that we can choose for certain things in our world to mean different things? It's an exciting time. And when we do a lot of that, we actually transform as people, because how we show up and engage with the world is so different that other people experience us as different. And all we've done is change how we take in and place meaning on the world around us. It's a powerful thing. So let's dive in on how we process the world and then into the actual filters in our model of the world that we use. This is going to be exciting stuff, so stay with me. So the next is, let's talk about how we process the world. So there are going to be events. I like to talk about events or things happening in the world around us are completely neutral, without meaning, until we take them in, until we place meaning on them. So the events, if we just use these as some examples, winning the lottery is a pretty intense event. If you've done that, you remember it, your first kiss, or possibly a world event like huge snowstorm or the 9/11 or the big blackout. Like there's all these big events that can happen in the world that we're all going to process differently. Now we process the events and the things happening outside in the world through our 5 senses: the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, what we touch; olfactory, what we smell; and gustatory, what we taste. So basically what we see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. Now the last research I did said that there were 11 million bits of information per second that's available to us, right? So every second that goes by, there's 11 million bits of information that's available. And you're right. If you're like, holy smokes, that's like, I can't process all of that. You're right. So what we do is we filter it. We use our model of the world to filter all of that information and just keep the bits that are important to us, the bits that have meaning to us, the bits that we can actually process and put meaning on. If something's way out there and we just don't have any way to engage with it, we just ignore it. It literally gets deleted from our world. We're just going to let that go. We're just going to let it go by. So these filters are so efficient that out of that 11 million bits per second, we actually keep 134. Now that says internal representation, and I want you to just think of it as a second of memory, right? You've created a memory and it has 134 bits of information within it that you've kept out of the 11 million. That's what you filtered. And then the next second, there'll be another 134 bits. And then that will create a little movie that you'll run that is your memory of that event. And depending on how intense the event is, will be how clear and how well you recall that memory later. Now, along with your physiology, you can just think of what your posture at that moment is. One of the big elements of physiology. Between your posture and whatever 134 bits you kept will determine your state or how you feel about that event. So those two things go together to create your state, or like I said, the emotion you feel about the event, and that will give you your available choices for behavior. So in this particular case, if it's winning the lottery, you filtered it through, and depending on your model of the world, what might pop out is, I'm going to invest this money. It's your first kiss, maybe you feel like dancing. A world event, maybe there's bonding. If your model of the world and you filter this very differently, instead of bonding, a world event might be isolating instead. Right? It depends on what is the meaning that you placed on those external events. What did you keep? What wasn't filtered out? So let's look at these filters, because this is what makes us each very unique in our world, is our filters are different. Now this diagram is the same one from the other one. It's just a little more colorful. And you get a chance to see the actual filters here. And we use the filters to delete. We distort information slightly. We look at it a little differently so that it fits into our model of the world, the way that works for us. We also generalize, which is what allows us to learn. Allows us to, oh, that's just like that. Oh, I wrote that. That's like something else that I know. I can take that new information in. I know where to put that. That's how that works. So I want to spend about a minute on each of these filters so that you can appreciate how they create a very different experience for us, depending on how they've been created and what's happening with your filter right now. Time, space, matter, and energy. Let's just pick time out of that to give you an example. Some people are like totally in their now and very present all the time. These are folks that often are unaware of the passage of time, and sometimes they're late unless they have alarms set and other things like that. And they just really are in the moment. Other people are really good planners in that they can actually know almost within a couple minutes what time it is all the time. How they relate to time and work with time is very different. So when things are happening around them, time's important to them, right? It becomes an element of what's going on. They can tell you exactly when something happened. So it's a piece of data that they don't filter out, they keep it. For someone who's more just in the now and time is just something that they just sort of exist in, they can probably tell you based on whether the sun was up, whether it was day or night, and they have to use other information to infer. Does that make sense? The next one is language. I want you to think of words as labels, like little sticky notes on mountains of experience and information and history. If you're speaking to someone and one of you isn't speaking in your first language, then what that word means to that person will be very, very different. if there's a particular word that might trigger you because it's something that someone who triggers you used all the time, so suddenly that word has a depth of meaning in it that will bring emotion that the other person in your now doesn't understand. They're not getting why you're having an emotional reaction to a word that's just neutral to them. So language is a way that we really have, we filter information very differently based on our experience with words, certain words. Our memories will come up. Whenever we're having an experience or an event, every other memory that's attached to that or similar to it is going to all come up for you. And then all of the emotions attached to all of those are also present. So sometimes we end up with like mixed feelings, and often that's what's happening there. And if in one situation, one person, their bucket of memories from that type of thing was very happy and joyful, and the other person, it was actually more mournful and sad, you're both showing up in this moment, having a very different emotional experience. You're going to have a different state. So your behaviors will be different. You follow? Good. Now the next is decisions. We make decisions a lot, especially in the heat of the moment. Something will happen and we might decide that is never happening again. Or that's important, that's the way I want to be. And we make a lot of these decisions when we're very, very young. We decide what kind of parent we want to be. We decide what it means to have certain roles in a household. All of these are decisions that are made very young, and we don't remember making them for the most part. So it's important to understand that people are filtering their information based on these past decisions. They're placing meaning on the events around them. The next is a big one. The next one's a big one. It's called meta programs. So meta means over. So these are overarching programs that you have around how you're motivated. And it doesn't matter what the situation is. And you very likely have a very different arrangement of meta programs than any other person that's in the room or in your world. So sometimes when you're looking at somebody, like, I don't understand why you can notice that picture is like a millimeter off. Like, I don't notice that, right? It doesn't mean that one's right or wrong. It's just one is motivated by things being highly specific and perfect, and the other one is more notices of people and how we're the same and we can all get along together. How we're filtering information is different versus it being a right or wrong. And there's a lot there, but that's a really good example. Is sort of, are you differences person or a sameness person? Are you more motivated to work in teams or work by yourself? It's just a very different thing. The next is values and beliefs. So these are the second deepest program we have, and our values and beliefs are based on certain topics specifically. We have values around relationships, around parenting, around health, around all areas of our life. And we decided very young, based on the values we saw expressed in behaviors around us, and we either accepted or rejected them. Which is why siblings coming out of a household, one will accept the parenting values that were displayed for them and the other one will reject. So they raise their families completely differently. And the beliefs, there are about 100 beliefs attached to every value. The beliefs also drive our behaviors. So it's a really big topic there. When our behaviors don't align to our values, it can cause a lot of problems. That's where we feel conflicted inside. Now, the last one here in the filters are our attitudes. Our attitudes build up, and they have the values and beliefs underneath them. The attitudes are most at the surface, and we're aware of other people's attitudes, and we can sometimes be aware of our own attitudes. So these are like the clues that are out there, and the current attitude that you have in that moment will absolutely determine what's getting filtered and the meaning that you're placing on all that information that's coming through. So again, with the external event, you're having a conversation with someone, and everything from that conversation, everything you see, hear, feel, smell, and taste is all coming in. You filter it through everything that you are, that is the sum total of your entire experience on this planet so far, and from that 11 million, you keep 134 to create a memory in that moment. And that, along with your posture, determine how you feel in this moment, which decides what kind of behavior you have available to you. So this starts to explain why people behave differently in different situations, why they have different emotional responses in the same situation, why you get triggered again and again by the same word or memory. It's part of your filter. So the keys to connecting with other people, knowing that each one of us is literally in our own world, appreciate that everyone is having a different experience right now. That we're all filtering differently, we're having a different experience. And that will create space for you to stay curious about why is someone else having an unexpected reaction to something, to be able to ask, what's happening for you? What did that mean for you? What's going on? Then ask for more information, right? Get someone talking about it, and you'll find that while they're talking about it, they start to feel heard, and you get an insight to what's going on in their world. And finally, be gentle with yourself, because you're having your own experience. You have the ability to continue to evolve. That is the beauty of being human. And thank you for joining us for Intro to Human, insight that will help make sense of it all. I've been Karen Kessler with the Next Level Leaders Center for Excellence.